Hello, everybody, and welcome to People on the Move, a podcast by Cargomatic. I am your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney, and I'm excited to talk about the celebration of Driver Appreciation Week. That is September 11th through the 17th, and we have a great guest for you today. Charlotte Dominguez is the Operations Manager for Nexxgen. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
Yeah, it really is wonderful. It's a celebration. As we said, we're celebrating Driver Appreciation Week. So before we go into that, Charlotte, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, of course, my name's Charlotte. I've been in the trucking industry since 2002. I started very young in the trucking industry. I started doing warehousing work and just clerical stuff. And then I moved in over to the drayage side. It was actually the cartage side. I went over to Pacer International. I worked there for about 11 years. In that field, I started in the accounting field, in the accounting department, let's say, sorry. And I moved into operations and I worked under the executives over there. And then from there, I branched off and started learning more in the operations, got myself involved in just accounts as far as on a customer service level. I got married in between all of this. I married my husband, who's also in the trucking industry, and he taught me a lot more as far as drivers and connecting on that level. But going back into about myself. So yeah, I started in the trucking industry 2002 and continued on into different companies, just learning the general operation. And from there, I found, my boss who hired me at Nexxgen, and he promoted me into the operations manager. It's been really good. We have grown. Our company has been from a small trucking company with 10 drivers, and now we have 90 drivers. 40 of those are owner operators, and the other are company drivers. And what that means is that the company owns a portion of their trucks. They have asset trucks, and then we have drivers who own their own trucks, and they can choose whether or not they want to work with us or not. So yeah, I've been doing this probably for close to 20 years, give or take. And oh, well, it's been over 20 years. Oh my
Time
gosh.
flies, right?
I didn't realize that. But yeah, so it's something I just kind of fell into, to be honest with you. I was a single mom at the time, a young single mom. I was working at another place where I was doing 10 hours, 12 hours a day. I wouldn't see my son. He was very small at the time. And my friend offered me a job over at the warehouse. And she said, your hours would be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And for me, that was perfect. I can put my son in daycare and get off at a decent time, give him dinner, put him to bed, wake up with him, get him ready for school. It was perfect for what I needed as a single mom at the time, or just even any mom once I did get married. So that's kind of how I fell into it, because it was a good fit for my need and my family need at the time. And then I got what's called the trucking bug. And what that is just you kind of end up falling in love with trucking some way, somehow. Trucking is very hit or miss. It's either for you or it's not. And in terms of in the office and getting everything together for the driver, preparing what the driver needs to make his move. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into the industry. Once I caught the bug, I started working for executives and I started learning a lot of different things, and it worked well for me. So here I am running the entire operation. It's been great, honestly. I've learned how to connect with drivers and the dispatchers, but mostly the drivers, and seeing how the yard moves and seeing what it all takes. Our company is a drayage company, which in trucking is where it begins as far as in the supply chain. So in drayage, what that is containers. The shippers will load up their freight into the containers, and then a trucker will come pick it up, take it to the port, and ship it out overseas. We are on the receiving end usually. Actually, we do import and export. So what that means is we're based here in Long Beach. So what that means is that drivers are going to connect to their container and deliver it to a distribution center, which is a major warehouse. And then from there, it'll get broken down into a trailer. And then that is where the long haul moves, where you'll see trailer trucks like Walmart or Target, and they deliver to those different stores. So our company is drayage based. We pick up from the port or deliver back to the port as far as import and exporting goes. So everything that comes in through the Long Beach or Los Angeles port, our trucks have touched it. So pretty much everything you see on shelves or in stores or even through Amazon, a trucker has touched that product just by, through the port of Long Beach. And it is a high percentage of product that gets passed in through here.
That was great. And obviously you're the perfect person to have here today because your wealth of experience, as you said, it's been a little bit longer than you thought because time flies, I guess, when you're having fun, you just went for it. So Charlotte, let's start talking about this is really going to be an interesting conversation about the trucking business. You shared a personal story there. My grandfather was a truck driver for a time. I have a friend and colleague who is in trucking, and it is a family business that has been passed down as well. So there is so much that we owe the men and women who are sitting behind the wheels of those trucks, and we don't even realize it. So let's start off with the impact that trucking has on our society as a whole.
Well, yeah, I mean, my grandfather was also a truck driver as well, and I didn't realize growing up what that meant, like what is a truck driver anyways. It's kind of the unspoken industry, I feel. Didn't really hit me on how big of the trucking industry is, and to be completely honest with you, and I already had been in this for 20 years, but until the pandemic hit, it was like, wow, we truly are essential because, the whole toilet paper issue, over at Costco was insane. All of us inside the office were laughing because we're like, okay, everybody's in line for toilet paper, but do they understand there's a whole warehouse waiting somewhere for this toilet paper, stocks and stocks of toilet paper. We're not going to run out. It's just a matter of getting a trucker to pick it up from the warehouse and take it to the store. So we kind of knew we didn't really understand until the pandemic hit how serious, or what the need is for a trucker. And what that impacted was if there was not a truck driver delivering any products over to, say, Walmart, Target, the supermarkets, we wouldn't have the essential products that we needed. So, excuse me. So the impact that truck driving has had is essential. It's gone all the way back to, the early days of beginning of time. There needed to be somebody to deliver the goods from one place to another. And the impact that it has today has grown tremendously. Truck driving, not only on a, import export basis, but all the way across through the United States. So if 90% of our product is coming from overseas and it's coming in through the ports, all of that product has to get through to the United States, whether it's coming from the East Coast or the West Coast. It's got to get to the middle of America. And how else is it going to get there? By train, that can only go so far. It needs to be done by a trucker at some point. So in the entire supply chain, the key component is going to be a transporter and transportation, a trucker, by air or train or ocean. Either way, it takes a truck driver to get behind that wheel and move it from one destination to another. The impact that it's had on society in general is tremendous. I can't even explain how big that need is because it's just so huge. There's, I think she said 800 billion. It's an $800 billion industry from shipping all the way until the final mile, which is delivering to the door. In some cases, it's already to the door, like your front door of your home. now, with Amazon or these other delivery services that are delivering your products directly to you. I can be completely honest with you. I've been very busy lately being operations manager, and our company has grown very, very fast in the last 2 years. I haven't had time to cook. Not, I kid you not, it's been 2 years since I've cooked, and my husband has been awesome. He's been so supportive. Thank God, because I don't know what I would do if I couldn't, if he wasn't understanding of this. But the delivery service just for cooking or bringing product to my house from, say, Vons or a grocery store, that has changed completely in the last 2 years. I would have never done that 2 years ago. I order like my groceries from Vons and it gets delivered to me. And it's awesome. I love it. I'm like, okay, what's my next, anyways, I love that. But again, that comes from somewhere, and again, a driver has to use that, and the need for that has gone up, has skyrocketed in the last 2 years. So the impact that it has on society, it's opened up doors for people who need jobs, even if they're doing smaller trucking, like on a smaller scale with little trucks. It's opened up doors for people to get careers. And especially people like myself, when I was younger, I needed something that was stable and that was going to have longevity and provide me with the essential benefits that I needed. I have a 401k, and I was able to provide healthcare and all of these things that I acquired through my job. I was able to, provide for my child. And that is something that has changed over the years in trucking. The impact that it's had on society in general has caused job opportunities and career opportunities, let's say, and for their families. So if it wasn't for a truck driver moving that product and getting that necessity out to the stores and to the people, what kind of society would we really have? Is the question.
Yeah. Well, as we just heard, the vital role that truckers play. And there's a saying, if you bought it, they brought it, which
exactly
is pretty much the case, because we are all ordering, especially post-pandemic world coming out of that. People that never thought they would have things delivered the way that they are getting those things delivered. So now more than ever, we are in debt to those truckers. So let's talk about the role of the trucker. And if we can dig a little deeper into the life of the truck driver, what that entails, and maybe some misconceptions that the population at large has when it comes to the typical truck driver.
Right. So I think our general idea of a truck driver, at some point in time, there's been a picture painted where he's a truck driver wearing a trucker hat, and maybe he's smoking cigarettes and he's just cruising along, and, he might be smelly or dirty. And it's true that stuff does exist. They really are like that. But there's also the other side of it. Before they get smelly and dirty and smoking a cigarette while they're driving, they're regular people. They have families and have a need to make money to provide for their families. My husband, who his father has 12 brothers, and out of all of those brothers, they're all drivers. They all primarily drive out of the Port of Long Beach. They're truck drivers, owner operators, and it's a really big family. They have come. They came from Ecuador and didn't have, any family here, and started their own business and kind of just grew and passed it down to their sons and their sons' sons. So it's now 2 generations of family in trucking. And so what they're doing is the men in the family work as truck drivers. They're owner operators. They make enough money to provide for their wife and kids, and so that their wives can stay home with their children and take care of them and be the mother, and the caretaker for the kids. Not a lot of industries nowadays are able to provide an income enough to supply for 2 or 4 or whatever the family size is. And in trucking, that gives you the and especially in the drayage industry, or yeah, in trucking in general, actually. It gives you the capacity to work more if you need to get more money back to your family. And whenever you need to pick up that extra route, you can get that extra income in if there's a need, And from what I've seen in with my own in-laws, um, they're regular people. They like to go and enjoy their weekend if they can, and um, get up and make dinner, get together and have, family time. Truck driving is a tough job. The driver, if you think about it, has to get off their vehicle every stop, put down the landing gear, open up the doors. I mean, it doesn't sound that bad, but when it's hot, like right now, we're in 100 plus degree weather out here in Southern California. And for us in Southern California, that's kind of like what's going on. We're used to our 70s, 80s. Like, this is way too hot for us. Or when it's raining, they have to still be out there. The wheels keep moving, and the freight needs to get there. The customers are not worried about if it's raining or snowing. They're expecting their product to get there regardless. And for the truck driver, they make it happen because, they get paid. Some of them get paid by the move, some of them hourly, but they want to be able to fulfill the need and get the job done so that they can have a job tomorrow and continue to keep working for their families. But it is a tough job because there's in the trucking industry, there's your peaks and you have your peak season and your slower season. And sometimes those slow seasons are longer than others, and that can make it tough on the driver. Here in the city of, or in the port of Long Beach, the drivers who do the drayage trucking, usually they have a slow period because the I don't want to say, how do I say this? The peak season period is from June all the way until January, usually, sometimes February. And then from February to April, it's kind of dead. And depending on, what company you have or what accounts you have, but in general, the freight kind of slows down a lot. So there's an area where the driver's concerned if he's going to make enough to get through the slow season. So during peak season, they try and hustle and get as many jobs as they can so that they can, save up and have enough money for the slow season. So that is also something that regular people who have a 9-to-5 job don't really think about, because there is no slow season for them. It's just continuous.
Let me ask you about that, because clearly not everybody is cut out to be a truck driver. Obviously, you talked about that it's not an easy job. So let's talk a little bit more about that with a percentage standpoint, because from what I've just seen and what I know about just in the media and what we see is there is a need for truck drivers. And obviously by what you're saying, you could understand why, because it is not an easy job. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about if, maybe some type of percentage, if you can give us just how many people are doing this and if that need is still there. Plus, what is it that draws somebody in that wants to be a truck driver in the first place?
Right. So the percentage is very high as far as the need of workers. We have in the supply chain in general, you have your warehousing need, which goes either in shipping or receiving, and there's not enough warehouse space to receive the product. Then we have the laborers. There's never enough laborers to unload the products from the trucks. And so that leaves a problem for the trucking company like Nexxgen. The trucking company is going to have to store that product, which is either in a container or a trailer. And hopefully that trucking company has a yard that can stack containers or freight, or, can hold what the warehousing can't. And where I'm going with that is the percentage is very general, because you have in the entire supply chain, you have your labor workers, which are your warehouse workers, and then you have your truck drivers, and then you have your office staff, because you need your customer service clerks to prepare those orders for the drivers to go and pick up the freight and figure out where it's delivering to, and all that good stuff. In my company alone, I'm in need of 6 people in the office because I've grown so much. And because of the way the industry is right now, there's a big need of freight that needs to get out. There was a backlog last year that we received over at the port of Long Beach in LA, of 70 vessels that were just dormant in the water.
Wow.
And they were there for about a good month and a half. I don't know the exact dates, but it was quite a while. What does that mean? That means that these vessels are going to be backed up and there's going to be an overflow of container of freight sitting in the port. And that means we need more drivers to get them out faster. And we only have a limited amount of time to get the container out before it starts accruing charges and the customer has to start paying out of their pocket. So as a trucking company, we always want to keep the cost down for the customer. So that way we can retain customers, number one, but also, we want to provide a service. So what we did was put out an ad and say, hey, drivers, we really need you guys to come on board with us because we have an abundant amount of freight that needs to get picked up. The percentage, I would say, is 90% need. And, where it's never going to end as far as always going to need a truck driver. I have a driver who's going to start today, but I have a driver who's been with us for, let's say, 5 years, and he got an opportunity to work somewhere else. So he's going to end. So it's kind of like we're always changing drivers, or it's like a revolving door of drivers going in and out of different companies. And that is rate based. There's 2 reasons why that happens. One is rate based and the other is preference. So some drivers prefer to do certain types of moves. They want to go to certain areas. They want to drive certain routes. Other drivers want to be paid a specific amount of pay so that they can afford to, provide for their families. But because there's so much competition out there, they can do that. They have the upper hand at this point. So I can't tell you the exact percentage, but I would say there's 90% need of drivers, but also drivers have the 90% upper hand and to say, hey, I'm not going to work for you. I'm going to go work for Tom's Trucking. And, and they have that choice.
And the need will continue to grow, I'm sure, as you said, because we need more things. We're always getting more things, and who is going to bring those things? So obviously the need is going to continue to grow. So let me ask you this. What is one thing, if people could walk away today after listening to this conversation, that you would want people to remember when it comes to truck drivers and truck driving?
I think one thing would be is that they're human. Truck drivers are human people. I mean, of course, obviously they're human people, but what I mean by that is that they're not just in a big vehicle that gets in their way, that gets in a regular vehicle's way. I mean, there's a human behind that wheel. And I would say to drive safe, be cautious, because I've seen it myself, and we had an accident not too long ago where our driver was cut off and he had to swerve and he flipped the truck. Luckily, he was okay, but it completely shattered. It was solar panels. It completely shattered the entire freight, and it was all because this car decided to cut him off to make, to get into the freeway, and he was just rushing. So I would say for people to really be considerate of drivers, to understand that, they're human, that they have a job to do, that they just need to get to their destination. So be cautious of it. Try not to cut them off on the road because it's dangerous and they have tons of weight behind them and they can't just slam on the brakes like a regular car can. So I would say give them at least 2 vehicles, car space in advance. Understand that, it's a regular guy or woman driving, that truck and trying to get home to their family at the end of the day. And also to keep in mind, without that driver getting to wherever he's going, we wouldn't have that product that you're probably on your way to go buy.
Yeah.
So,
And we shouldn't be cutting anyone off. Anyway,
in general.
whether it's truck drivers or anybody else, we shouldn't really be cutting people off
Right.
in the
And
long run.
it
That will be safer for everyone.
Right. It happens.
Give yourself some extra time to get where you're going. So
Yes.
whether it's the actual act of shopping for goods, which I love to do, or we just enjoy getting things. We talked about a variety of different things we get, sent to our house, but everything, furniture, clothes, accessory, equipment, there's nothing really, I don't think, that would fall off of the list that truck drivers are not bringing us. So clearly we need to be appreciative. How do we do that? How do we show our appreciation for truck drivers?
Well, in general, I would just say give them a little hello. If you're driving past them and he lets you in, just a quick wave of thanks, But if you do know a truck driver personally, let him know. Say, hey, thank you for all your hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed. Or I appreciate you being out in the rain or being out in the heat, this week or last week or whenever it was. I think just a general thank you goes a long way. And just acknowledging that they're there or saying hello, but just a general thank you to them, I think, is enough. And if there's anything extra, if you happen to know somebody, maybe a thank you card or whatnot. But just for general people, I would just say thank you. Thank you to the drivers out there for all your hard work. And, it doesn't go unnoticed. We wouldn't have our products without you, So I'm just saying thanks right now, taking that opportunity on behalf of Nexxgen. So, I think just like I said, just showing appreciation, whatever that may be. I myself, I always, if the driver lets me get into that lane, I always just say, hey, thanks, or I'll slow down if I need to and get behind him instead of trying to get in front of him. Mm-hmm. So, just being considerate in general.
And respectful out on the roadways. I'll tell you personally, and we both talked about our grandfathers both being truck drivers, I get petrified when I'm around truck drivers because they're so big.
Yes.
So I'm like, you can do whatever you want. I will stay clearly behind because I don't want to get involved in front of a truck driver. Obviously, they have some place to go, and they're trying to do that as safely as possible. So I always steer clear and let them have the control of the highway there. Charlotte, any final thoughts as we're closing up here?
I just want to say thank you, to the drivers out there who stay out there on the road, out over the road over days at a time, and they're trying to get back home. Sometimes they can't get back home to their families. What they do out there is super important, and it's just thank you. Thank you for your courage to be out on the road, especially during the winter seasons. It's scary out there. There's snow and black ice and rain and wind. So, I just want to say, reflecting on Driver Appreciation Week, not only is it in drayage or in deliveries, but it's also in the long haul drivers and the short haul drivers too. But, it goes across the board. So drivers are appreciated all over, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and back. So I just want to say thank you for that. And not only to the men, but there are women who are truck drivers now. And it's growing. It's been growing. They've been working in the industry for over 10 years now that nobody really talks about. And it's a male dominant industry. And it's very courageous of women to get out there and get behind the wheel. It's not for everyone. So those women that do it, I'm very proud of them. And it's great to just see women get in the field as well and know that they can provide for their families as well.
That sounds like another podcast episode to me. Just saying.
Definitely.
That was a whole other conversation that we could delve into very deeply, I'm sure. Charlotte, such a pleasure to have you here once again. So thank you for joining us, because some great information that was discussed here, and hopefully maybe some future truckers out there and people that want to get into the business. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Greatly appreciated. If anybody's interested on reaching me, excuse me. If anybody's interested in reaching me, you can email me at charlotte@nexxgen123.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you have any needs, please feel free.
Wonderful. And maybe they do. Maybe they're hearing this conversation and they want to get in it. So thank you, Charlotte, once again for being here. Great conversation for Driver Appreciation Week. I want to thank you for listening and watching out there to the People on the Move podcast by Cargomatic. Of course, you can go to cargomatic.com for more information on this podcast and Cargomatic in general, as well as the coordinating companies that they are linked to. Thank you again. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. We hope to see you soon.